Mary Japhet knows a good story when she hears one. She's made a career of telling them. Whether it's for a nonprofit such as San Antonio Sports or one of the many clients she supports through Japhet Media, the key, she says, is to dig just a little deeper than anyone else. Welcome to BexarCast. I'm Randy Langford, and this is BexarCast, a weekly interview with business, political, education, and nonprofit leaders. We're examining the relationships between all four and how each one benefits from the success of the other three. Talk to San Antonio media expert Mary Japhet for any length of time, and you'll catch her enthusiasm for storytelling and her alma mater, Trinity University. She's managed to combine those two passions, serving nearly a year as the entrepreneur in residence at Trinity and founding not one but two communications companies with clients in both the public and private sectors. She's an energetic, engaged communications professional helping leaders, companies, and organizations identify and share their stories with purpose and intent. Mary, thanks for joining me. I appreciate you being here.
It's my pleasure. Happy to join you.
Well, I explained a little of your background in your intro, but there's a lot to cover. And that's why I'm so excited to have you here, is because you've been involved in just every form of media there is. And I want to explore that. I want to dive into that. You've put your media expertise to work in the nonprofit field, which is very resonates very much with me because that's where I live as well. And that's exactly what BexarFest is about. We're giving high school students, media production teams, the opportunity to work with a nonprofit organization and to tell that organization's story. We want them to learn media production, but we also want them to learn how a nonprofit organization works. When did you decide you wanted to work in the media? When did that seed get planted?
Right about when I was in high school. There was no video production team at my high school. I grew up in a teeny tiny town halfway between here and Corpus Christi,
Right.
in a little place called Runge. But it was a great little school, and I had great teachers who inspired me and got a lot of encouragement from my parents. But I got into drama and debate and speech at, early high school, certainly my freshman year, honestly, when I was even in middle school. And so, I kind of had a knack for it and enjoyed words. My mother was an English teacher and an English major, so, it was ever present in my household. So I think I went to Trinity University at the age of 16 for a debate tournament.
Oh, wow.
And Trinity wisely had the debate contestants explore the campus and tour the campus. And I got to walk into the studio, the TV studio at Trinity, and just fell in love and knew that this is it. This is where I wanted to go to school. I had kind of had an inkling that I wanted to be a television news reporter, but boy, oh boy, like in 5 seconds, I felt like I got thunderstruck. So really and truly, it was from a very early age. From 16, I decided that I really did want to be a journalist, and I wanted to particularly be a broadcast journalist. And I did go to Trinity, and I did study broadcast journalism. That's my major. And I did get an internship at Channel 5, Ken's TV. And I did go to work for Ken's TV for almost 9 years. And then I was out in Los Angeles in the television business. But so I realized that is unusual for a kid to have her mind so clearly made up. But I did. And I'm very grateful for having that kind of line of sight. It was only when I turned 30 that I wondered what the heck I was going to be when I grew up.
What was I thinking?
Yeah.
How did this happen?
I never regretted it. I absolutely, and still to this day, admire journalists. They're some of my best friends. And journalism's every bit of, it's very much a part of my life, though I am not on that side of the camera any longer, usually.
Right. And it's interesting that you're involved in so many different types of media with podcasting and event production and media relations. And again, one of the elements of BexarFest is to expose students to different kinds of media production. Try photography. Maybe that's what appeals to you, or graphic design. See what you gravitate toward. Now, I know you were on camera for a long time. Was that what drew you to the media, or is there any particular role that appeals to you?
I think I love telling stories, and I still do, in whatever medium that takes place. I like photography. I'm not particularly good at it, but I love it. Recently, as you mentioned, have gotten into producing podcasts, and that's great fun. I don't have my own yet, but that's coming, I feel sure, once
Yeah.
I can make the time to do it. But I think for me, it's been about the story. When I was a reporter, I didn't want to tell the story, about the talking heads telling us we had a CPS rate hike. I wanted to go find the family that this would impact and how they would deal with it. So, yeah, I would always encourage kids to try everything. I
Right.
mean, they're at the time of life where you can, without much repercussion, just try it all.
Yeah.
Throw the spaghetti against the wall, something's going to stick. And you'll find if this is the line of work for you, you'll find your particular niche by
Right.
trying everything. Don't go in with preconceived ideas.
Somebody told me that the third year of law school is a real bad time to decide you don't want to be a lawyer. So try everything when you're young and see what resonates.
Sure. And now you can. I mean, your program is a perfect example. What a great opportunity for young students to explore their creativity. And, there are all sorts of things available at school, but there are so many things that they can do with their own iPhone. We all have one, right?
Yeah, we all
So
have a media production company in our pocket.
in our hands,
Yeah.
exactly right. So there's so much that they can do just to get out there, explore. I mean, that's a video camera, it's a recording device, it's a still camera, it's everything. So use
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. It's all you need. And now tell me about your involvement in San Antonio sports. Where did that come from? How did you get engaged with sports? Was that always something you were passionate about?
Well, I was a mediocre athlete in high school. I could run fast in a straight line. That was about it. But I love sports, and I give a lot of the credit for that to my father. He was a big sports nut, and I just always enjoyed kind of the unusual sports. And even when I was a reporter at Ken's, I would go find kind of the obscure sports
Mhm.
stories to do. I wasn't a sports reporter, but if I had the opportunity to go work on a feature, I'd find a story about a fencer or about a badminton player. I figured the sports guys had, football, baseball, basketball covered. They didn't
Yeah,
need me for
we
that.
don't need
But
another high school football story.
yeah, exactly. That wasn't going to be me, unless it was the story behind the X's and O's. That's what's always interested me. But as I mentioned earlier, I was in Los Angeles in the television business, and actually had been, when I was in San Antonio, I'd done stories on this fledgling group of people trying to get this sports commission off the ground in San Antonio. When I was in LA, the U.S. Olympic Festival was taking place there, and I just volunteered in the PR office. I had a little time between TV gigs, and so I did it. And I literally ran into Robert Marbut, who was then selected as the president for San Antonio's U.S. Olympic Festival. And he said, "Hey, I need a director of advertising special events. Do you want the job?" And I was like, "No." But so we got together later and talked about it. And within about 3 weeks, I was in San Antonio, fully anticipating that I'd be going back to LA to
Right.
the television business. But I didn't. I worked for the U.S. Olympic Festival, which was back in '93. And so it was a while ago.
Right.
But that's where I really got into the business of sports, the how sports organizations work, not just about the teams, not about the athletes, but how the organizations work. And it was fascinating, and I loved it. And when the festival was over, I ended up staying in San Antonio, and I was on the board of San Antonio Sports for 8 years, and then had the opportunity to join the staff, and it just felt like the right thing to do. And it was good timing in my life. It was good timing in the organization's life. And so for 18 years, I led communications and marketing for San Antonio Sports, which is a wonderful organization, nonprofit organization that is all about bringing premier sporting events to San Antonio, and also, unlike other sports commissions around the country, has its own youth sport and fitness programs for underserved kids in our community. So I'm still obviously very much part of it and very much a fan.
And Mary, I don't want to go too far afield without talking about what you're doing now. Your own media company. Tell me about that.
Well, I left San Antonio sports in June of 2019 to form my own company, Japhet Media. And I'm doing public relations, event production, media production, video, audio, and absolutely loving it. But I think the through line that goes through everything I've always done is about stories. So I'm telling the stories of my clients, whether it's through public relations, whether it's through producing a virtual event, many for nonprofit organizations, or it's helping Chris Dial and the Basketball Embassy launch their brand new podcast, which we will be launching very soon, called Hoop United We Hoop. There we go.
Nice.
So, it's at the end of the day, it's all about telling great stories. There are a million stories to be told right here in San Antonio.
Yeah.
There are great stories to be told at nonprofit organizations, corporations. You just have to do a little digging. Just look a little deeper than everybody else looks, and they're there.
And back in my reporting days, when I was in the media, there's the old, everybody that's ever taken any media course in the world knows who, what, when, where, why, and how.
Uh-huh.
That's the first thing they teach you. But to me, the interesting part was always the why.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of it is just data, but the why. What motivated you to do that, and what was the motivation that came from that? And that's always been the important part to me. Is clearly your motivation is to tell the story that needs to be told, and that was always my hot button too. But I salute you. Good for you. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's great fun. I think I've always been curious, which I would encourage any young person out there watching this. Just foster that curiosity. Keep looking, keep asking questions. That's where you're going to find the interesting stuff in life. Just
right.
digging a little deeper than everybody else does.
Well, I see the memorabilia behind you, the jerseys and the balls and the Final Four.
Yeah, you don't work in sports as long as I do without accumulating a few things.
Yeah, that's part of the souvenirs are part of the fun. That's what makes it fun.
Really is.
You mentioned the nonprofit component of that, and that's close to my heart. Mm-hmm. And there's so many nonprofits doing so much vital work that nobody even knows about.
Yeah.
When I got involved in BearFest, when we started doing BearFest, that was kind of the genesis of the whole thing, why it came to be. And it's why it's designed the way it is, because we could have just as easily had students telling stories about their schools, but we wanted to give them that opportunity to learn about how nonprofits operate. And I'd be interested in your thoughts about getting young people involved in the nonprofit community, both from an educational standpoint and for their development into members of society. How does that make them better citizens?
Oh, I think the nonprofit sector is a great opportunity for young people to get their feet wet, to, as we were talking about, experimenting and finding out their true passions. But it's a true career path. I mean, you can get a degree in nonprofit management these days. So it's not just a bunch of do-gooders who sit around and pat themselves on the back. Every nonprofit that's worth its weight in salt is run like a business. Now doesn't have shareholders, but it has clients and it has people it serves and it has a board of directors and it has donors. So the most successful ones are run as a business would be run.
Right.
So I think students have great opportunities to intern with nonprofits using your model. Dive in, volunteer with a nonprofit. If their particular talent is photography or videography, volunteering to do a piece or a photo shoot for a nonprofit to help them get their message out there, that's tremendous. If you're a good writer, go volunteer to do social media for a nonprofit and know what you're doing around social media. That's important. But there are, as you say, so many nonprofits who really need the help of talented creatives, and they may get nice people who are wonderful about helping them in other aspects of their business, but it's hard to find good people who can donate their time in a creative capacity to help a nonprofit tell its story, because there are so many good stories. Every nonprofit, just by the nature of their work, has great stories to tell.
Absolutely.
They need the
As
venue, and they need someone who cares enough to help them get there.
Yeah, when you were talking about, I'm not interested in the high profile stuff, the glamorous stuff. I'm more about the nuts and bolts. I want to tell that story about the people this is impacting. Nonprofit is the best place in the world to do that because they have such great stories to tell,
Absolutely.
and they're so
Well,
undertold.
yes, absolutely. So that, there's stories about the people they serve, that's stories about the volunteers. It's how did somebody get to be the CEO of that nonprofit?
Right.
What motivates them on a daily basis? Why did Mr. Jones retire from the Air Force and then decide to basically go work for free almost 40 hours a week for a nonprofit? We had people at San Antonio Sports who were we called them our key volunteers, but it's a kind of core group of leaders that we quite literally would leave the keys with them,
Yeah, sure.
just lock up when you leave today,
Right.
because they were so great. And they're just terrific folks that are very dedicated. So there's lots of opportunity and great stories to be told.
You mentioned San Antonio Sports. I want to go back to that for a minute. Tell me about the basketball embassy. Is that part of San Antonio Sports?
No, it is not.
Okay.
The Basketball Embassy is another nonprofit with
Okay.
a great story to tell. Chris Dial is the head of that. It's his brainchild. He is the men's coach at Our Lady of the Lake University, but he was a collegiate coach. He's a San Antonio kid, and he's just got the vision and the dream to connect people through basketball, through the sport of basketball, particularly young people. And though they have wonderful programs here in San Antonio and serve kids at Haven for Hope and SA Youth and all sorts of, they can partner with other nonprofits
Right.
to deliver basketball training and camps and coaching experiences for other nonprofits locally. What is a great differentiator for them is that they do it globally. They work with the U.S. State Department to connect the youth to go to Kosovo and do youth sport basketball camps with that federation. And it brings communities together. It brings kids from opposing religions, opposing cultures. And you roll out a basketball and kids don't care.
Right.
They're friends, and it's all about the game, and they learn the game. And so Chris really put this nonprofit together and got a few. He would tell you he suckered a few of his friends into being on the board, but there was no arm twisting involved. It's a really worthwhile cause, and he does a tremendous job. He's kind of a quiet leader, but he's a heck of a leader, and he's great at connecting people literally across the globe.
Wow. And that's intriguing to me is the I guess the role model element of that these adults are giving of themselves, giving of their time to these kids. And I'm a big believer that every adult is a role model, whether you want to be or not. You just are. Kids are watching, and they're gonna your only choice is whether you're gonna be a good one or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of BearFest is that we put these high school students in these nonprofit organizations for a considerable period of time. They're locked up for months working with their nonprofit, telling that story. It's more than just taking a tour. I mean, they really get to know what's going on behind the curtain. And it encourages me that they get immersed in this culture and are very receptive to it. I've seen a lot of them say, I had no idea you could work in the nonprofit field, and to work with these kind of people who are so passionate about what they're doing. And like you say, working almost a full-time gig for nothing, for no pay, the pay that doesn't come in an envelope.
Yeah.
And how does that impact young people? What do you think the impact of that is on their generation? I've seen this culture. I've seen a culture of people who are compassionate and empathetic, and that's where, when I get out into the real world and get a real job, that's where I want to work.
Absolutely. I am a firm believer in mentorship and internships. And you'll hear me, anybody who knows me knows I preach that inside out. And at San Antonio Sports, I probably had at least one intern every semester, if not two. And the organization usually had 5 every semester. because we really believed in giving young people the opportunity to test the waters, to try, I think internships are as valuable for showing you what you don't want to do as they are for confirming what you thought you wanted to do. In fact, it might be more valuable in that regard. But yes, you can learn, young people will learn from the adults they watch, whether you want to or not. So it takes for the person who is doing the mentoring, it takes time. So you've got to be prepared for that kind of a commitment and not make it lightly. But for the young person, take full advantage. Just be a sponge. Go in with no preconceived ideas. Go in, you're young, you don't know everything. Know that you don't know everything, and just go in with an open mind and an open heart and a desire to learn. That will set you apart from so many people. So I do think it is I've seen so many wonderful coaches. I've had great mentors along my career who've shown me the right way to do things. When you get into a jam, what's the way to get out? Those sorts of things that's invaluable. It's incredibly important for adults to offer that to young people, and it's really important for young people to take advantage of it. And oftentimes they're going to have to kind of shove their way in.
Right.
Some of these, especially if we're talking about smaller nonprofits, it's hard to run a nonprofit, especially if you're one or two two people shop. The really small ones, they're doing the work. They're doing the work of their mission. They're going to probably say, I don't have time to mentor somebody, show them the ropes. If you can come in and say, don't worry about it, I'm just here to learn, and then let me show you what I can do, and be a resource and not a burden, that's terrific. Take full advantage of those opportunities.
Make yourself valuable.
Yeah.
Make yourself valuable. Show them. Let them know I'm here to work. I'm here to tell your story. Give me the chance. Just let me tell your story. Yeah. And it's interesting, when we first put BexarFest together, when we first started working on it, we went out to schools and said, we want to pair your students with a nonprofit organization and let them see what the career path is like. And most high school kids, I was stunned. Most high school kids think everybody working at a nonprofit is a volunteer. that nobody's getting paid. Nobody here's getting paid. I can't do this and feed my family. It's fun. I feel good about it, but I can't pay the bills.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
I would say for the most, yes, it is absolutely a career path, and that you're not going to get rich usually in the nonprofit world, but you can be paid well, and you can make a living, and you can go home at the end of every day knowing you've done good for your fellow man. And that's a real gift.
There's more to making a living than a paycheck. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Winston Churchill says you make a living by what you get. You make a life by what you give.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Great. Yeah.
He was pretty good.
Yeah, he had a lot of good ones.
Mary, thank you so much. I appreciate you making some time for me. I appreciate your insights. I appreciate what you do. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
My pleasure. Happy to do it anytime.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.